Hey guys, my name is Josh Victor, and before I got into my semester reflection, I did want to thank the professor because I feel like he had a really enthusiastic and a genuine appreciation for the course topic. Whenever it was him sending us materials or encouraging us to go to an exhibit, I really appreciated the effort that he makes for us to really achieve a substantial education on the subject at hand. Now, my expectations. This course went beyond my expectations. I mentioned in the last video that I am part Israeli, and so I have an extensive background and knowledge of World War II propaganda. It was a major part of me growing up was to learn about my people's history, and that was the most significant part that I learned about. Um, I think that it is so important to learn about how society changed because of art and how art changed because of society. And in this course, we learned both and we saw many examples of both. And I feel like it's important to acknowledge things like the invisible hand because it's still very apparent in our society today where the invisible hand guides masses of people towards decisions, and we have to acknowledge that the invisible hand is there so that we can make our own decisions regardless of what that invisible hand is telling us to do. And so really um, the course went beyond my expectations, and I really enjoyed learning. um, I take pride in being like a well-rounded and holistic student, and so taking a class that's outside of my major was super important to me. I am a business major, and so art and propaganda and persuasion is clearly out of my realm of expertise on what I'm studying to become, and I really do enjoy learning about things that I'm not supposed to be learning about because I have to be um, well rounded. Um, I like being informed. This also gives me the opportunity to uh, educate my friends and my peers about things that they may not be informed about because I think it's important that they're also informed so that they can make their own decisions. For example, like I have friends asking me about politics and the government all the time, and I feel like courses like this that give us an opportunity to educate ourselves on the subject um, give me that opportunity to help them make their own decisions. Um, One of the most challenging parts of the semester was probably finding information for my essays. That doesn't mean I didn't like it. I really enjoyed digging around and really having to work hard to find substantial information and substantial evidence because the easy answers were right in front of us as soon as we looked up the information. But I wanted the real answers and the real evidence where I had to look through pages and pages of information before I found a good quote, a good piece of evidence, a good piece of rhetoric to use in my essays. I really found myself writing with emotion and intensity because I felt like I had a lot to say on the topics in our essays. And so I feel like topics like that and topics that want to make the writer write more are so important. I just found myself having to be more concise and having to cut it short for the sake of not giving the professor a small novel to read every time I wrote an essay. So I did find that to be a challenge, but I enjoyed it completely. Um, I also really enjoy learning about all the new types of political propaganda because we are so heavily exposed to it as the demographic that we are, that it was just almost impossible to not see wherever I went some form of advertisement that tried to sway my conscience. Um, I did enjoy watching the films, and I did enjoy reading my peers' responses, and I did enjoy watching the professor's videos because you can tell he spoke uh, with an intensity and a haste that he wanted us to learn the subject. I can't tell you how many lecture videos I've watched where it's the most mundane and boring and unenthusiastic presentation I've ever seen, and it just didn't want to make me learn uh, like like Professor Winter did. Um, there are a few themes that I want to touch on that really impacted me. Of course, the most prominent being the communist propaganda and anti-communist propaganda. And of course, I found myself with a lot of previous knowledge on communist propaganda, but it was the anti-communist propaganda where I really piqued my interest, because it was the response to the communist propaganda, and it just really seemed like two bulls clashing horns. And I think it was just so important to learn about, because we live in a society where if we don't know both sides, then we can be heavily swayed onto one. And so I thought learning about the other side was just as important. I also liked learning about why things the way they are and why things are not the way they are. For example, when we talk about the freedom to create art, where the line stands, and I found myself arguing inside my head both sides, and I realized that that's the whole point, is that we have to learn about the opposition just as much as we do about the affirmation. And I just really enjoyed it. Overall, I would recommend this class to anybody that I know, and I do wish that I got to meet more of my classmates, my group mates. Awesome job, guys. This is probably like one of the first groups that I've had where I felt like the work was distributed and shared equally, and I didn't have to do 90% of the work like I do in almost all of my other group projects, unfortunately. Just by watching some of their reflections and reading their posts, I can tell that these are the kinds of people that you want to have great conversations with. And so maybe I'll try and reach out to a few other of my classmates and we can become friends, because we have nothing else to do besides stay at home anyway. All right. Hope everybody stays safe, and thank you very much.